All right, Chief Sneed, welcome back. I'm so excited to get to speak to you again about the most latest updates we have on some actions that you've taken and some actions that Tribal Council's taken in regards to our economic stability. Let's talk a little bit about the LLC project and where we're at with that and why that's important to the tribe.
Right. So as you're aware, and I think everybody's aware, we've talked about diversification, economic diversification for the tribe, to not just depend on gaming as our only source of revenue. There are many tribes who have ventured into having an LLC to do business on behalf of the tribe. One of the issues that we run into with government trying to make business decisions is that those decisions tend to get pushed to committee and to board, planning board, and then back to council. And unfortunately what happens is a lot of times we miss opportunities because government doesn't move at a pace that is compatible with doing business.
That's
and
right.
So other tribes have recognized that, and so they've created these enterprise boards, these separate corporations to do business on behalf of the tribe. Ho-Chunk Nation has been very successful. Seminoles, obviously, very, very successful. Chickasaw Nation, Porch Creek, they're doing some pretty amazing things.
And even the Cherokee Nation.
Yes, oh yeah, absolutely.
In Oklahoma, you recently heard from Chief Bill John Baker there. Tell some of that stuff.
Right, so when we were at Cherokee Days, Chief Bill John Baker mentioned that their 8A contracting, they had just crossed the $1 billion mark in 8A contracting.
And that exceeds and goes beyond their gaming
Absolutely.
revenues.
That's
it's an impressive number. And a lot of tribes, from my research, have stated the same thing, that a lot of their 8A contract and a lot of their LLC revenues are outpacing their gaming, which is great.
Right. And there are other tribes, there's tribes up north that they don't have gaming at all, but their 8A contracting through an LLC is their sole source of revenue.
Absolutely.
So it's an outstanding opportunity.
Let's talk a little bit about the definition of an LLC or a tribal chartered operation. What is that? What does that look like?
So it's a separate corporation that's chartered, and they can conduct business. They can, in the case of this LLC and what it would be tasked with, they would have the opportunity to purchase existing businesses. They could fund startups. They could do real estate speculation. So it's really the sky's the limit as far as what they're able to do. But at the same time, the tribe's assets are completely protected because this is a separate corporation.
That's the important part, and that's what a lot of folks really need to understand when we're talking about defining what this LLC is. It's the ability for us to do business while protecting our current governmental assets. We don't want a company to partner up with us, something go wrong, and then them sue us and we start losing assets of the tribe, whether it be money or buildings, vehicles, whatever we'd have to sell off. That's worst case scenarios. But the purpose of this is to simply create a line to do business on that safeguards our assets.
That's correct.
Okay. So what are some of the first steps when we start talking about LLCs and what that takes to kind of get established?
So the first thing that has to happen is a corporation has to be created. Which we've done that, and the attorneys handle all of that. And then we have to establish the guidelines for the board. Yeah. And so with boards, there tends to be this belief that that they're overpaid and they don't do much. And one of the things that I wanted to do with this board and working with our Commerce Secretary, we wanted to be innovative with this and build in an accountability piece. The first thing that we felt was important were to ensure that we had people that were highly educated.
Right.
We've told our people for years and years, get your education, come back and serve your tribe. So we've placed very strict education guidelines as a criteria for serving on this board. Equally as important, and maybe more important, is in addition to that education, is real world experience.
Right.
We're
talking about millions of dollars.
Exactly.
That are going to be having to be spent, having to be managed.
Exactly.
We need folks with actual experience in these areas.
That's exactly
to make
right.
this money. And now this is where I'm excited, because you haven't really had a lot of play on how other boards were formed, some of the guidelines or bylines of those boards. But this one, you are actually on the forefront of helping to create the structure for how this board would operate and how it would be managed. And tell me about your philosophy on this, because it's exciting and it's new.
Well, I feel like that if people are going to be productive, then there has to be an incentive to be productive. If you just put a large salary at the front end,
right.
There's not necessarily motivation to be highly productive.
That's right.
So this board would be very different from some of our other boards in that the initial salary for the type of work that we're asking these folks to do is fairly low. It's $25,000 a year, but then they're incentivized. Once their gross revenue goes over $5 million, then there is a $5,000 a year pay raise. The next threshold would be $15 million. There would be another $5,000 a year pay raise. So this goes up incrementally, but it's all based on performance.
Right.
One of the other things we built into it as well is that there's a 6-month probationary period.
Okay.
So if I appoint somebody and tribal council confirms them, and then within the first 6 months it's determined that they don't have the skill set, or maybe it's just not a good fit, then we can just say, look, this isn't working out, and
Right.
we're gonna put somebody else on there
Right.
who can get it done. So, but I think that the fact that it builds in accountability, that the
Yeah.
performance is going to be evaluated.
Right.
That needs to happen, and I think that it's something that we need to take a look at with all of our boards.
That's correct, and that's exciting as well. When you talk about the board formation as well, this particular board would have 5 members?
That's correct.
And let's talk about their term limits. That was another piece of this that's really interesting and exciting.
So it's initially it would be staggered, and then there would be 5-year terms after that.
Okay.
So the makeup is that there would be 3 enrolled members of the Eastern Band. There can be 2 from other federally recognized tribes, and again, tribal council would be the confirmation. And one of the things that I've done that as far as I know, has never been done before with appointments to boards. From the outset, I've provided resumes of the candidates to tribal council.
Right.
I feel that's important because they need to know who they're voting on. They need to know what their credentials are, what their education is.
Yes.
So from the outset, when appointments have come up, I've provided resumes to council so they can be informed.
Exactly, and it helps further add to the transparency of government. We're still trying to push the politics out of these board appointments. We're still trying to make sure that the community feels comfortable with the processes that we're putting in place. That's why this is such a cool and innovative way to create this board that I think the people can really feel comfortable with. So what else? What's the next steps after we kind of get this board in place? Is that where we're at now, as we're trying to get the board established?
Yes. Actually, what has to happen next is tribal council has to approve the makeup of the board.
Okay.
So we'll be bringing a resolution in May, and they'll have to approve that, and they'll also have to approve the compensation structure. So once that happens, then we can start actually appointing members to the board. I've already placed an ad in the One Feather and,
Right.
and on social media, seeking resumes. We're receiving quite a few resumes from
Good.
people. So we want to get the most talented and educated people on this board.
Right.
And then once that happens, then we're off to the races.
We're off to the race, and we're a little behind the curve. We've talked about this before. Other tribes have been doing this for years and
Yes.
years, and we must reiterate, this is not anything new.
It's not.
It's not. The newest part of it is how we're doing our board selections and appointments and getting the council to confirm those. But this LLC structure, the 8A contract, has been going on for years and years,
Yes.
and we're really far behind on that.
Yes.
Economic diversity is the number one key that you've taken on your shoulders to make sure that we're starting to diversify what we're doing on our revenue streams so we can pay for all the wonderful services that we have and the employment that we have. We have a great structure right now. We're running thin and lean on funding and revenue, with it being all coming from the casino.
Correct.
This is an opportunity, and this has to happen, and it's something that we got to make sure that if the community members out there have any questions, any doubts, any concerns, reach out to your office,
Absolutely.
reach out to us, get those answers, because as far as we've seen, we're behind the curve, and this is nothing new, and we need to get on board and catch up and get ahead actually.
Absolutely.
Of some things.
It is a great opportunity. Our casinos do phenomenal. They really do. But again, the size and scope of our government and the services that we offer have just continued to grow over the years. And so the amount of revenue that the casinos are able to produce, we consume right now 88% of the projected revenue to fund our government.
Right.
And so my goal for this coming fiscal year is to ratchet that number down to 85%.
Right.
And then incrementally, year over year, to ratchet it down 1 to 1.5%. To get us down to 80%. And then long term, I think it would be reasonable for the tribe over a 10-year period to try to get that down to even 75%.
Yeah, just be fiscally responsible with these things.
Exactly.
Make sure we're lean, make sure
Exactly.
we're providing great services and employment, but simultaneously we've got to make sure that we're lean and we're being fiscally responsible with the resources we do have. So thank you very much for making that a priority, and for sure I look forward to seeing the next phases of that come along as we get this board established, we get to council and things start to move forward. Let's come back on again and let's talk about the next steps of the LLC and the direction it's heading so that we can continue to educate the public on what we're doing.
Absolutely, Chris. Be happy to do that.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
helping
you.
with me today. Thank you.